Auto parts, a very frustrating and confusing topic of conversation, and more importantly, is there any auto parts left out there made in the USA? Hey guys, welcome back. So we're talking about auto parts on the channel. We've done this a couple of times previously, and what sparked the idea for this whole video was a fellow viewer sent me a comment. He mentioned that he actually likes to use standard ignition parts in his vehicles because they're made in the USA. At least it's stamped on the box, made in the USA, and he prefers that. I thought that was interesting, and I did a quick Google search, found out that standard ignition parts is actually manufactured in Poland. However, they have a head office in New York City. So this was kind of confusing to me. I decided to do some more research on the thing. This guy had a box made, it says made in the USA, and yet very clearly online when you search this, it says otherwise. So I decided to do some investigation into what the Federal Trade Commission considers what qualifies to have that made in the USA stamp. And it got very confusing. Now with most products, when it says made in the USA, it's pretty much cut and dried. All things are manufactured in the USA. All the products inside those items come from the USA. However, when it comes to auto parts, there's a little bit of a gray area there. And anytime they use the word assembly, assembly is a very broad term, can mean a lot of different things. And this is where it gets confusing. So I've got an example here. I'll try to explain it as simply as I can. So this here is a basic HEI distributor cap. The only reason I grabbed this thing was everybody knows what this thing is. Now basically this thing it's got a molded body, an injection molded body making up to the cap, and then it's got 4 J hooks on the bottom of it, and each one of those J hooks has a little spring inside of it, and then it's got the 8 terminals on top. And then when you buy these things, you get you know, the little button and a spring and a plastic or a rubber washer all for your coil. Anyway, there's like 7 different parts that make up this component. This is one part, but there's 7 different components to this. Now, all these big manufacturers have, you know, they got bean counters. They got guys that do their research and find out that it takes them, you know, say for example, it costs them $1 to produce the J-hooks per cap in-house. However, if they do some more research, they find out that they can purchase these J-hooks from China and have them shipped to them for 36 cents a cap. So now that moves on down the line. So a lot of these different components on this one part, and there's 7 of them, could possibly come from 7 different countries. Now, as far as the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, what qualifies you to have the Made in America stamp is just basically some portion or all of the assembly process in putting this thing together. Then they can actually have the Made in America stamp in it. So just like the example with the fellow with the standard ignition parts, those parts were produced in Poland. However, they were shipped to the US, and some portion or all of that was assembled in the United States, and therefore they can get that United States stamp of approval on it, and it says Made in America. There's lots of different terminology. I don't think the FTC is deliberately try to sway us or confuse us or be misleading in any way. It's just when you, all the terminology used when it comes to auto parts and the process in making these things, it becomes very confusing. So not always in the automotive world, at least when we buy parts that say made in the USA, are they actually made 100% in the USA. This particular cap here, this is, you know, this is an AC Delco piece made in China. But if we had an ignition cap like this, Now, I guess I should break this down further and give you an idea why a lot of this stuff comes from different countries. So, and a lot of it has to do with the labor rates. The cheaper labor rates in countries like China, Taiwan, Mexico, Indonesia. There's all corners of the globe make some portion of automotive parts, and they all get shipped to the United States, and then it gets assembled into different products, like this one part number of this one part here. So now if we were to break it down, I think the labor rate in China, if you were to convert that into American dollars, it was in 2022, I believe the minimum wage was just bumped up. And in American dollars, that works out to about $3.50 per hour American, where the average auto worker in the United States makes $28 an hour. So this part is $35 to buy. And that's American dollars, 35 bucks. You can buy this part, or, you know, if you were to actually have every component here 100% made in the USA with materials produced in the USA and assembled in the USA, well, this distributor cap could be 7 times what, you know, it could be 245 bucks to buy this. Would you pay $245 to, you know, and don't quote me 100% on these numbers. This is just kind of a baseline to give you an idea why a lot of this stuff comes from different countries. The confusing part is, you know, the assembly process. Does it mean that they actually assemble this complete piece in the United States, or a small portion of it? Do they just put the J-hooks in the thing and then throw it in a box, or do they simply bag it, tag it, and throw it in a box? Is that considered part of the assembly process? Well, it very well could be. And that's why, you know, when you're paying somebody $3 an hour, mass producing hundreds and thousands of these type of things, you know, some of the quality control and the material, you know, the quality in the materials, this is where it all kind of goes downhill, and it all goes south on us. There's a lot of times we purchase many aftermarket parts or even OEM parts, and you install them in the vehicle, and they fail right out of the box, or tolerances aren't quite right. You're just dealing with cheap labor, in a lot of cases cheap materials, and unfortunately made in the USA doesn't technically mean that all these components were actually produced in the USA and then assembled here and sold to us. And if they were, they would be extremely more costly than the $35 part I have in my hand here. So it's one of many things we've got to consider when we buy these things, and it's just the way of the world today. It's not just with auto parts, it's with all manufacturing all across the globe. Everybody, you know, the only way they can make a dollar is, you know, outsourcing all these little components, getting them as cheaply as possible. And unfortunately, it's in a lot of cases it's shipped here and assembled, you know, possibly assembled here or just boxed up here and sold to us as a made in the USA part. So yeah, it gets very confusing. I mean, a little more on automotive parts. The biggest automotive manufacturer of parts in the world today is Bosch. They're based in Germany. Second to Denso, which is an American company. However, if we look at, you know, Denso spark plugs probably being one of the most common part that we can think of. Well, Denso spark plugs are made all over the place, not just in America. They're made in China, Japan, Indonesia. They come from all over the world, so you don't really know, you know, it says made in the USA. Manufactured in the USA is a different term, and that means that all those components came from the USA, were put into this thing, and actually it is 100% USA. There's a lot of different terminology we got to watch when we buy these things. We don't really know what we're getting, but are we going to pay? Like I say, this is 35 bucks. Are we going to pay $245 for a distributor cap? Well, certainly the guy trying to sell them for 245 bucks is probably going to go broke, where the $35 one is going to get sold all day long. Some of this we have to blame on ourselves. We tend to support, you know, the online companies the big box companies. That's all that's left is the big corporations. You know, the AutoZones, the Napas, and then the online companies. Gone are the days of the mom and pop store on the corner where we used to go to, and they've been there 30, 40 years, and they're basically gone. And I know it's very attractive. You just open up your computer. You don't have to leave the house. You just type in the parts you want and use your credit card, and the thing shows up in a few days. The unfortunate part is, and a lot of guys have success with that. I've got nothing against guys buying stuff online today. It's very common. However, I personally like to stay. If I can buy the thing locally through an auto supplier that I trust and has treated me well, that's the way I'm going to go. It's certainly the safe route. Anybody that's going to warranty my parts and have exchanges done without any questions asked, that's the way you got to go today, because a lot of this stuff, like I say, it fails right out of the box. You got to kind of protect yourself. Now, like I say, there's a lot of guys that buy the online stuff and have great success doing that, and it's 2/3 cheaper than the stuff down on the corner. But and the thing to remember is, and the last video I posted on where the best place to buy auto parts is, really what I was trying to say in that video was all this stuff is the same. It comes basically from the same manufacturer, the same plant. Whether you buy it at the dealership or the online companies or the auto supplier downtown, it's, for the most part, it's all the same shit. And at the end of the day, you want to deal with somebody that's going to, take your part back, return it, replace it, and treat you well as a consumer, as a customer, to make sure that you can get this job done. It's very frustrating today, the whole auto parts scene. Sometimes you buy 2-3 parts and install them in a vehicle. I'm in the automotive trade. Sometimes you'll install the same part 3-4 times in the same vehicle before you get one that actually works. And we typically, most automotive shops will stay away from the online companies unless it's no longer available locally. Then they will outsource stuff online. But it's a tricky deal. We've all been frustrated with the quality of parts today, and this is the way the world has, not just with auto parts, but with a lot of manufacturing. And like I say, yeah, unfortunately, it's a little misleading. It may say made in the USA, and unfortunately, it may have just been assembled here, or a portion of it assembled here and boxed up and sent to us. So I recently had a friend comment on the channel also. He made a trip to Taiwan, made a trip through a manufacturing plant where they were making tie rods and front end suspension parts. And all those same parts coming off the line, a portion of them went into brand new Moog boxes, and the other portion of them, the same part, went into white boxes. And yeah, it's just, you don't, somebody's paying the big dollar for the brand name part, and the other guy's getting the white box for a cheaper deal, and it's all the same thing. That's just what I'm trying to say here. So anyway, interesting topic of conversation. I did a little research on this. You guys don't have to take my word for it. This is all available online. Big difference in labor rates from one country to the next. We can't afford to pay $245 for this, certainly. You can buy, made in America stuff. It's still available, it's still out there, but it's pretty small compared to what comes out of these other countries. Now they say that China, recently I read some stuff online that only 4% of the world automotive parts come out of China. I don't think that number is very accurate anymore. I see a lot more of it today. Certainly anything AC Delco related is all from China. There was a class action lawsuit in 2021, I believe it was March of 2021. A fellow went to a local parts store. He wanted to pay he was up for paying the premium dollar to get the AC Delco made in the USA part. It was a transmission filter kit. He went to, it said made in the USA on the box. He went home to install it in his vehicle, only to open it up and find out this fine print said made in China. So he started a class action lawsuit against GM, and the FTC got involved and looked at, while they followed all the guidelines, it was made in Flint, Michigan. All these parts were actually USA made, and they were the highest quality at a reasonable price. And unfortunately, he lost his suit because they made they met all the qualifications to have the American-made stamp on there. Also, I've noticed that the AC Delco's parts have, it still says Flint, Michigan on there, but it is more bold. You can tell that it's the made in China is a little bit more obvious on the boxes now. I don't know if that means anything or not, but yeah, interesting topic of conversation. So yeah, where's this stuff made? Where does it come from? And why does it cost what it costs? It comes from all over the globe, so even when it says made here, it doesn't necessarily mean it's 100% made here. That's the purpose of today's videos, guys. I hope I helped you, make some clarification. This is why we're struggling with some junky parts out there, and they're not all junk, they're not all trash, but certainly we've run into a number of, it's gotten worse over the years, and it's probably going to get worse given, the way things going in the world today. But yeah, we just got to keep struggling and doing our best to keeping our cars on the road. And anyway, yeah, thanks very much for watching. Hopefully I brought some clarification to the topic, and I appreciate you guys. See you again.